Okay, so Zach's back there. I'm not in such a rush. One other thing I want to remind everybody, and everybody did a really good job last week. Uh, when we get finished tonight, and John dismisses us, let's move to the foyer as quickly as possible and have visiting and things out there instead of in here, because the singers are going to try to get together and sing our songs for preparing for Sunday. So we're going to try that again this week. And again, everybody did a great job last week, and we appreciate the help with that. Now, tonight, we have a special guest with us tonight in our summer series. Our brother John Partlow, he and Seal and Jonathan are here in town. And it's good to have Kurt and Barbara with us as well tonight. I think they're Jonathan and the rest of the kids' adoptive grandparents. They have loved them for many years. So it's good to have John with us. Those that are relatively new here won't know, but in 2001 is when John and Seal and the kids came to be with us and minister to us here as a minister. That ended about 15 years ago, and John went to Elkton. Seal drug her heels. She kept teaching up here for several years at Grapevine after that, and then they subsequently moved to Ohio and have done a couple of different things there. So I'll let John catch you up on what all's going on as he speaks tonight, but it's sure good to have them back and to see them and to enjoy visiting with them. So, John, I will let Zach turn you on, and I'll turn off.
Am I on? I'm on. Well, hello, everybody. It's been a day or two. It is so good to be back, to get to be here, to see you, to see everyone except for Keith. You know, it all started. That's the way it was. March the first Sunday in March in 2001. Jane was like going to, I would say adopted, but Jonathan went right into your preschool and had lots of experience. And then Matthew followed a couple years later. Taylor, 7 years old. Randy Travis is the one who shot that picture, and it's been a while. It's been a good lot of things. We have a Taylor went off and got married. Matthew went off and got married. Jonathan's taking applications. And Taylor and Derek have a little girl. She's 7 years old, oddly enough, the same age Taylor was when we moved here. So her name's Lily Rose. And she's got me wrapped there and all that. On a one side note, then I want to share just something personal that just means more now than it probably ever has. But I did write a book, and it is out there on the table. And Jonathan, you talk to Jonathan, and he'll, if you're interested, set you up. But that's all I'm going to say about that. It's not a #1 bestseller, but it is what it is. There are three things that Seal and I were sitting down talking about Penny Ryland and our experiences here, and there's a lot of experiences. I mean, 9 years that we spent here, but there, you know, we were talking about. Well, I could mention this, I mentioned that. There's a lot of things we could mention, but there was three things that touched us. More than you know, and two of them, I wasn't even here when it happened. The first one was when my dad died, and on like the Sunday night, it was the Sunday night after Dad's funeral, and we came back. I preached his eulogy that I did in Portland. I preached it for you guys, and just the amount of appreciation from you guys that you had met my dad, but you didn't know my dad, but you knew me, and the warmth, and one of those nights where you guys came to me and said, "Thanks for sharing that with us," and I remember that as if it was yesterday. The other two things occurred in the last 2 years. And that is when my mom died 2 years ago, and when Seal's mom died last year. On our doorstep, or actually in our home, were flowers from Penny Ryle Church of Christ. So we've been gone. Barry said, enough water to go under the bridge. But when my mom died and when Seal's mom passed, you guys remembered us. And just know that how much that touched us, to know that somewhere in all that there's still a bond between us and you guys. And so thank you. Thank you very much. Let's shift gears and let's go to Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. And the text says, "Soon afterward, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. And as he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. And when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her. And he said, 'Don't cry.' And when he went up and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stood still, he said, 'Young man, I say to you, get up.' The dead man sat up and began to talk. Jesus gave him back to his mother. And they were all filled with awe. Praised God. A great prophet has appeared among us, they said. God has come to help his people. And this news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country." Let's have a word of prayer. God, as we come before you and we open your word to this particular story of hope, of resurrection, of life, may something be said or experienced in this moment that reassures your love for us and our faith in you is not in vain. And this and Lord, thank you for this church called Penny Ryle, and the many people who have come through these walls, and the good that they have done, and the blessings that they have been to so many people, including my family. In your son's name, amen. So they say, and they're right, prayer is hard. It's reported that Martin Luther prayed 4 hours every day. 4 hours every day. 4 hours. Yeah, I'm like 4 minutes. It's a struggle. That song, Sweet Hour of Prayer, right? It's like sweet moment of prayer for me. I've got so much ADHD. My mind goes here and then there, and then all of a sudden I've got to be up, and if I can get a good 5 minutes worth of prayer, I feel like I'm doing good, kind of thing. 4 hours, 2 hours, because prayer is hard. The concept is so easy. The execution is sit down and talk to God and clear the mind and focus. I find it hard. And Jesus keeps assuring us. He keeps encouraging us, right? Ask. Keep on asking. Keep on seeking. Keep on knocking. Keep on pursuing. Keep doing this thing called prayer. Hard. It may be difficult, but don't stop doing it. And I think that prayer gets harder when life gets harder. Because you feel like somehow the words are just bouncing off the ceiling. They're not penetrating and not going anywhere. They're just going straight up and coming right back down. The old Super Balls, remember the old Super Balls? They just bounce and then go forever. And then if you missed it, you're bouncing to somebody, you're going to chase it for a mile. It's like boom, 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 because it's not. And you're like, God, are you even there? Are you even listening? The disciples were crossing the sea that one time. Remember that one time they were crossing the sea and the waves were like rocking the boat and coming over the boat. And they're like, we're going to die here. We're going to die. The game's over. And they look over and Jesus is like sleeping on the job. He's like, what are you doing? We're about to die and you're not doing anything about this. And their prayer to Jesus is a lot of our prayers. Listen, God, can't you see I'm dying here? Can't you see things are just falling apart? And what are you doing about it? Because prayer is hard. I have a job. I'm now a hospice chaplain. So I walk people through the final moments of their life. And sometimes it's a beautiful moment. Family gathers around, and they're watching their loved one take their final breath, and I happen to be there. And I get to pray with them. I get to be with them, and I get to share that little moment with them. And it's a beautiful moment. But then there are other times. A young mother has cancer. She has 2 small children, and a husband doesn't know what's going to happen after she goes. Prayer's hard. Or the family is in denial. Your loved one is not going to live. No, he's going to get better. God's going to heal him. And I'm supposed to pray. And I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Sometimes it's easy. Man, sometimes it's hard. Because prayer is hard. Put a pin in that thought here for just a second, can you? And we're just going to segue here. Because Jesus, before this story about this widow's son, Jesus had just had this address about faith in the face of death. The centurion comes to Jesus at the servant. He said he's going to die, and he said, "Listen, I've got all these men under me. All I just have to do is tell them what to do, and they just go do it. So you just say something." Say something now. You don't have to come with me. You don't have to lay your hands on. You don't have to just say something, and it'll be good. And Jesus looks at him, and he's like going, I've never seen such faith, not even in Israel. Just literally, I trust you. I trust you that you don't have to come and do this. Actually, physically touch and say. You just say it now. And he goes, and Jesus is like going, I've never seen such faith before. Not even in Israel. Not even among the believers. Not even among the people who trust God. And so he's already had this little interaction, this little conversation about faith and about trust. When he heads to a place called Nain, and Nain is not on the main thoroughfare. It's off the beaten path. You have to want to go there to go to Nain. I was trying to figure out where in location. We're in Madisonville. Where would the Nain be here? And I was saying, well, coming back from the web, almost Manitou might be it. I mean, if you're not going to go to go there unless you're going to Manitou, unless you're going to go see one of you guys A number of us are going to be able to live out in that off that road. But Nain this is off the beaten path. So Jesus is like going, guys, we're going to go on a little adventure. And so he takes his 12 men, and it's going to say that there's this large crowd that's following him. So he's got the 12 disciples, and according to verse 11, he's got the 12 disciples with him, and he's got this entourage. He's got all these people who've just kind of gathered around him and gone with him and hanging out with him and following him, and they're listening, and they're trying to say, I want to know more about him. I want to know about what he's saying. I want to know more about what he's teaching. And they're all with him, and there's this commotion. There's all these people, and they're following Jesus. And he comes to the city gates, the modern day courthouse, so to speak, where all the important things are decided. Business transactions take place at the city gates. Legal disputes are settled at the city gates. All the merchants who come into the city stop at the city gates. And so this is it's kind of the hub. It's the hustle and bustle. People are coming and going, and it's the important part of the city. And strangers coming in want to know where the movie theater is, and where the car dealership is, or where they're going to get their internet. They're going to stop at the city gates, and they're going to direct them to where they want to go. So Jesus is entering this little small town called Nain. And he comes to the city gates. And what does he meet? A funeral procession. A funeral procession. The smell of death. And they're going outside the city gates. They have the body, they have the coffin, and they're taking him outside the city gates because, according to the law, the bodies have to be taken out of the city, and they have to be buried somewhere else. You don't bury them in the city confines themselves. So there's a smell, an odor of death. If not, there could be. And there's an uncleanliness to the whole moment too, because touching a dead body. So the people carrying the coffin are now unclean. And all these people who are with them are if they're not unclean, they're on the cusp of being unclean. They're inches away from being contaminated spiritually by death. And so it's a sad moment. Just in general, it's a funeral. It's not a happy moment. It's a sad moment. But the layers make it even sadder as you peel them back, because you find out that it's a widow. And the widow is not the one who died. The widow's son had died. The widow's son had died. And what does that mean in ancient Israel time for a widow who has a son, and that son to be died? What does that mean? What are the ramifications of that? The widow has no support. The widow has no future. The widow has no hope. The widow will be pushed to the fringes of society, where she's open prey to anyone and everyone, because she has no voice, she has no power, she has no say, she has nothing. The only hope that she had was in her life, was apparently her husband had already died, was the son. Because the son would be the person who would represent her family to any kind of legal action and legal dispute. Other now with her son being gone, she has no voice. She has no sway. She has nothing, and she may lose her home. She may find herself homeless. Marginalized, vulnerable. This is a very dark moment. You just feel this is sad. This is disturbing. And I've already mentioned there's unclean issues here already at stake. There's this dead body. They're going outside the city gate. And when Jesus reaches up and touches the coffin, what does that make him? If we were to stop the story right there, Jesus touches the coffin, what does that make Jesus? Makes him unclean. So there's a lot of the way to say, well, what all's going on with the story? Because he puts himself in peril. And now he's unclean. Except for the boy comes to life. The young man comes to life. And by him becoming life, filled with life, is also filled with hope. Because she has a tomorrow. Because she has someone who will take care of her. She will have someone who looks after her. She will have someone who will be her voice to the community. She has a place because she has a son. And the people there it's blowing them away. Filled with awe and praising God. Filled with awe. They're like jaw drop. Did we just see what just happened? I mean, who'd have thunk? Who had this on their scorecard that this was going to happen today, right? Right? This widow's son, this boy, this young man who was dead, we just had his funeral, is now alive. He's now okay. And they're in awe and they're praising God. As you should. As you should. And then they say, a great prophet has appeared among us. A great prophet has appeared among us. And I love this line. God has come to help his people. Because remember, this is not Jerusalem. This is not a suburb of Jerusalem. This is Nain. This is out in the middle of nowhere. Who goes to Nain? This is the only place, if I read this right, this is the only place in the Bible this place is even mentioned. This is one time. Who goes to Nain? Anybody ever go to Nain? I hadn't been there. If you're to go to the Holy Lands, anybody here going to go visit the city called Nain? No, you're going to go to Jerusalem. You're going to go to Capernaum. You're going to go to Bethlehem. You're going to find Calvary. You're going to go to Antioch. You're going to do all of that. You're not going to go to Nain. Nobody goes to Nain, and yet here he is. And they're like going, God has come to help his people. There's hope. But what they said before that is a very interesting statement. It says, a great prophet has appeared among us. A great prophet has appeared among us. A great prophet. A great prophet. Great prophet. You may know who they're talking about. You may have any idea what they're talking about. Great prophet. Why would they say that? A great prophet has come, has appeared among us. Because way back when, turn back the dial a little bit, you got this prophet by the name of Elijah. And Elijah goes to King Ahab and he says, listen, it ain't going to rain for the next, I don't know, until I tell it to. And it was this confrontation between God versus Baal, Israel's hope versus Ahab and the dynasty of Omri that is just bad people. Side note here, turn back the clock to, this was one of my first sermons that I preached here was on Elijah. So Elijah confronts a king, and God sends him into the Kerith ravine, and he's sitting watching this river flow by, and he's drinking the water, and ravens are feeding him. Ravens are feeding him. I just for a moment. Ravens are feeding the prophet. How do ravens feed their young? I just ate barbecue. I don't know if I can go this far. I'll just not a very pleasant thought, but these ravens are feeding Elijah by the Kerith River, and this water is getting shallower and shallower every day because there's a drought. And finally, the river bed dries up, and Elijah says, "Now what?" And God says, "Well, I want you to go to Zarephath, which is the back door of where Queen Jezebel's from. It's her backyard. And I want you to go there. There's a widow there, and she's going to take care of you." And Jesus would tell this story, in his own right in Luke, and he says, you know how many widows there were in the time of Elijah in Israel? But God didn't send them to any of the people in Israel. He sent them to a pagan Baal-worshiping widow in Zarephath. And so he shows up. She's picking up sticks. And she goes, would you get me something to drink and maybe some bread? And she says, "Listen, I'm down to my last drop of oil and flour. I'm going to go home, and I'm going to make it into some bread, and then my son and I are going to die." And he says, "Yeah, make me some bread anyway." And for whatever reason, she does. And she goes to pour that last drop of oil. And it's olive oil, not motor oil berry. Just thought you need to know that. And miraculously, there's more oil left in her container. And so every day, she pours her last drop of oil to make the bread. And every day, there's always enough oil for the next day for bread. And this is all wonderful. Anybody remember what happens next? The boy dies. The little boy dies. And she's upset. Once again, she's marginalized. She's lost everything. She's lost her husband. She's lost her son. And she says, "You came here to condemn me. Why'd you do this?" And he takes the little boy aside, prays to God, and raises the little boy to life and gives the little boy back to the woman, the widow. So Elijah raised a little boy. So when they say the great prophet has come among us, they're going, "Hey, that Elijah story. Remember that Elijah story? This is a lot like that Elijah story." But Elijah's not the only one who raised a little boy from the dead, right? Elijah had a protege named Elisha. There we go. And Elisha was an itinerant preacher. I'm relating more and more every day to Elisha. Every day. Every day. Known as a bald man. Right, James? Just nod, James. He's just looking at me. I don't think he heard me. Maybe he heard me and I'm just in trouble now. But Elisha's an itinerant preacher, and there's this husband and wife, Shumanite couple, and they were like going, this prophet, he's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. We've got space here. We don't have children. We have space here. Why don't we build an extra room onto our home, and whenever he comes by, he'll have a place to stay, called the prophet's room. And people kind of use that terminology even today. If they have a space for visiting preachers or whatnot, we'll just put them in the prophet's room. And Elijah was like going, "These are the nicest people, but there's something missing in this household. It's too quiet. What is it? What?" No kids. And so he basically promises you next year you're going to have a child. And sure enough, she has a child. They have a little boy. And he grows up, and some time passes. I can't tell you how much time passes. I should know these things, but I don't. But some time passes, and he's old enough, and everything's going well until one day he's out in the field, and he grabs his head, and he starts to scream, my head, my head. Aneurysm, stroke, I don't know, something. And he dies. And the Shunammite woman, just takes matters in her own hands. She runs to go find Elisha. And he comes back to her and he picks up the boy. They go into the room. Lays him on the bed. Praise to God. And life returns to the boy. And he gives the boy back to his mom and dad. So when Jesus raises this widow's son from the dead, they're not going to great prophets come among us. Someone like Elijah. Someone like Elisha. And we have hope because God sent us. God's come among us. And they're so right, and they miss it by just a little bit, but that's okay. That's fine. They get the bigger picture of what's going on. And both of these stories then provide the backdrop to Jesus and these people connecting the dots. It's a beautiful story. I love the story, by the way. So you remember what I asked you to put a pin in that we come back around to? Remember that? We're talking about church budgets. Some of you are thinking, what? Talking about when it's hard. Because prayer is hard. And I struggle every day with prayer. I have my prayer time every morning. And it's like God must be talking to a 2-year-old who can't keep still. Right? I can't focus. And it's a prayer sometimes driven by guilt. I don't pray enough. Like, I don't do enough. That kind of mentality. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. Even if you don't, I'm not the only one. I sat with one of my patients here within the last 3 weeks. And her grandson OD'd. And she's tore up. And I would too. If something happened to Lily, it would kill me. And she's tore up, and rightly so. And she's weeping and crying. And you know what she tells me? She says it's my fault. Not my fault. She says it's her fault. Because she didn't pray enough for her son, her grandson. She didn't pray enough for her grandson. What do you say? What do you say to somebody in that moment? What do you say if you're the one struggling in that very moment? Something bad happens and you say, it's my fault because I didn't pray enough. So we say, pray hard, right? In the midst of praying hard, there are two things that happened in this story. I just want you to file back. And if you ever kick yourself, go back to this story. Because there's two things that happen in this story that has helped me. They're kind of like going, oh, that's interesting. You want to know what they are? The first one is that this lady has no speaking part. The widow. If you go look into there, there's no conversation. I mean, remember the story of Lazarus? Lazarus dies and he's in the tomb, and Jesus shows up, and both Mary and Martha come out, running out to Jesus, and what do they say to him? Well, if you'd only been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Right? You remember that? They've got a lot of lines to memorize for that play. Right? And they've got to deliver those lines, and they've got to give those lines, and they've got to be in anguish and pain and hurt, and they've got to look at Jesus, and they're basically blaming Jesus. If you'd only been here, our brother would be alive today. Okay. This widow, we don't even know her name. And she says nothing through this whole story. Nothing. Nothing before, nothing during, nothing after. She's not asking, she's not seeking, she's not knocking. No lines in this play whatsoever. She's just a person crushed by the death of her son. And yet, I love this. Verse 13. Jesus, when he saw her, skip all the lines, when he saw her, his heart went out to her. He knew what she was going through. He knew what was happening. It wasn't rocket science. He saw what was going on. He understood what was happening, and his heart broke for this woman. I mean, don't you think in those moments that a heart, compassion, and love, whether you pray or not, that God feels that for you? Whether you ask, whether you say it, or do you go to him or not? That God's heart's not going after you anyway. And the second thing about this is even better than the first, really, because we are so transactional in our relationships. There's no strings attached. Jesus actually, he doesn't actually address the woman. What he doesn't do, especially what he doesn't do is, well, now that I've healed your son, you need to straighten out your life. Or brought your son back to life. Now that I've done this for you, there is something you need to do. There's none of that in this story. None of that. The crowd erupts in praise. And Jesus just backs away. All is good in the world. No conditions. Trying to help somebody understand conditions. God's not looking for strings attached in a relationship. He's not doing this game where if you do this, I'll do this. Because God's heart's gone out to us. And whether we say anything or not, God is standing in our midst with us. Because Jesus freely gives. Because that is who he is. Because that is who God is. A God who freely gives. So, that's Lily. If you can make that out, that's Lily. 7 years old. She lives 3.5 hours from us, so we don't get to see her enough. The good news is we don't see her too much. We don't get to see her enough. But we'll get the, with Messenger, we get the FaceTime. And so she'll call us, And sometimes she sits down and tells us all the stuff that's going on. She wants to play rock, paper, scissors shoot with me. She's learning how to cheat the game because I taught her. I'm a good influence. I'm a good papa. But she'll do all this, and she wants to show us something and all that. But you know what? There are other times, because she is quite small, is that she'll call and then she'll run away and she's okay. I'm not interested really in talking. Good to see you, Papa. Good to see you, Mom. That's what she calls Seal Mom. Together it's just Papa Mom. Just Papa Mom. One word, Papa Mom. He's like, good to see you, Papa Mom. Glad you're there. I'm off. I'm gone. And you know what? I don't care. I love those moments too, because she's got a life. And she's a great little girl. And so there are moments when we sit down and we get to see each other and we share and talk however we do that when she's 7. And there are other times where just knowing you're there, I'm good and gone. And she's off. And we talk to Taylor, which is not near as good, but it works. And I kind of think that's the way it is with God. God loves it when we just step into the moment. And sometimes our hearts are heavy and we're able to be there for the longest time. And sometimes we show up and say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. And God says, and that's okay too. And that's okay too. And so we keep on asking, seeking, and knocking. But stop beating yourself up over it. Stop telling yourself you don't do it enough, because you don't. None of us do. And we call that grace. We call that grace. God, thank you for this people. Thank you for prayer and for the joy that we have just to step into your presence, Lord. But you know it's hard. And not all of us are gifted for prayer. But the fact that we show up and check in is sometimes good enough. So help us just to step into grace and stop beating ourselves up over such things. When you just enjoy being with us as we're in your presence. And bless these people here at Penny Ryle very much in your son's name. Amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And I hope you have a good day.